We just had some hail and some rain here in western Montana, so it is rather soggy out. Not the type of conditions I would like to film a whip video in, but when you have a whip fit to purpose, it becomes a lot easier. The whip I'm talking about, of course, is this 8-foot Chris King Florida cow whip that I picked up from Three Forks Saddlery in Three Forks, Montana. They get whips from all over the country from a variety of different makers. I've gotten a few whips from them, and on the day that I stopped in, they just so happened to have some of Chris's work in, and so I went broke buying this because I don't often get a chance to pick up this type of whip. I believe that if you would like one of his whips, I think you can find them through, I imagine either through him directly, however you want to contact him, or you can get them through westernstageprops.com. I believe that some of their rancher whips are actually his whips. But recently I was trying to get some YouTube content. The content didn't work out for one reason or another, but I actually got to target with every single one of my whips using this beautiful target stand from Sword Guy Builds. And one of the whips that I was targeting with was this 8-foot whip. Now, I may have said in a previous video I wasn't sure about the targeting capabilities of an 8-foot cow whip, but let me tell you, if you kind of figure out and you work the whip the way the whip is designed to be worked, it works. So we're going to do a little bit of targeting. What I'm using is my favorite targeting medium, which is a zip tie, because I don't have to reset and it gives me an obvious strike indication when I hit it. So we're going to try some targeting with this whip. Now this, as I mentioned, is an 8-foot whip. I know that in one of his interviews, Mr. King says he likes a 10-foot whip because that gives you enough distance between you and whatever ornery cow that you're dealing with. I find that this 8-footer is just about the right size. It almost doesn't fit here in my backyard. My front yard right now is a bee sanctuary, and I don't want to trim it, but I have no problems trimming the backyard. So that's why we're shooting back here today. But we're going to do a little bit of target work with it. Now, it should be noted there are a couple of things that I've noticed about using the whip that I'd like to touch on before I actually start trying to hit this piece of zip tie. And that is that there is a swivel action built into the whip. And as I can tell from watching documentaries and videos of Florida crackers, that pretty much the reason is that this is utilized primarily in the overhead off horseback. And that it makes a beautiful crack, it does it very well, and that swivel handle just makes it that much easier in order to do that. So that's why that swivel is there. And it's not like a full swivel like you might find on an American style swivel handle. It stops because the laces, of course, come down to the thong come down to the handle here, and it sits there. But that makes setting up for targeting a little bit differently. It's very hard for me to find the belly or the bend in the whip. For those of you who have not been watching my video or following me, you know that I primarily utilize a variation of the rolling loop where we're upside down, to form my loop, to form the loop as soon as possible to the handle so that I have a greater degree of accuracy. This makes it a little different. As you can see, I can't quite manipulate it with my handle the way that I'm used to in order to find that. Normally, as I'm actually manipulating the whip initially, I can feel where that is and then adjust accordingly in order to do my throws. But this doesn't quite have that. It takes a couple of, you gotta kind of find out where it is, but once you find it, the whip responds very, very well. So we're just going to do a couple of target cuts on this. Traditionally, when I've been target cutting, I have been using a Cattleman's or a compound crack in order to do my targeting, or my cutting primarily. Recently, I've really fallen in love with the flick, or the windmill throw. Either starting in front or making it more of a direct throw from behind, but I find that when it comes to this type of work, I just prefer it for one reason or another. Also because using, in my opinion, using the Morgan style bullwhip, it's beautiful, and that's what those whips are designed to do. This one does them pretty well too, so let's see if we can't get some target cutting with this Florida cow whip. So, 8 feet is a distance, and already as so this is like, you know, like laying the whip out and figuring out where it wants to go. Here we're starting into our flicks or our windmill throws, and I'm just trying to figure out where it wants to lie in relation to the handle. There we go. All right. Lay that out a couple more times. So, not quite a fine a target cutter as I'd like, but I'll bet you that if the person at the end of the handle improved his technique a little bit, spent some more time with this whip, it would probably work a lot better, honestly. Whether you're doing coarse or fine cutting, I see no reason why, with a little bit of practice and work, I couldn't actually get to the point of putting a human at the end of this and feeling safe and confident in their safety and the ability to hit it. Again, this swivel action means that if you're shooting for that high degree of accuracy, and you're not, as a friend of mine put it, riding a bicycle, harder and faster in order to maintain that, it is a little bit more difficult using a Florida cow whip, but it can be done, which I think just really points out that in the end, it is the whip in combination with the user that makes a whip accurate or not. If you've ever seen the Whipmaster sketch on Saturday Night Live, then you know that was a really bad combination of a really poor whip and a very poor user. But let's do a few more. We'll do a few more flicks at this, and we'll see how it goes. One thing that I've discovered is really important is if you use a whip like I use a whip, that with this, I'm gonna come back to the camera here. One of the things that I do is I let my hand swivel on this as I'm adjusting to a whip, trying to figure out where the best point is to get that loop where I want it. With this, if I release my grip, it changes completely where the whip is lying in connection between the thong and the handle, and that kind of makes it a little bit difficult. So, again, still a really fun whip. So let's go back to that targeting, shall we? Couple of things, remembering to extend my hand out as opposed to keeping it close like I like, so that I can actually target what I want. By extending my arm, I'm extending my energy, and I'm really pointing to what I want. Something I am working on. See, that's what happens. But because I'm not using a lot of energy, it is not damaging. A little bit diagonal, horizontal. There it is. And just keep working it that way. Very interesting whip. Yeah, I take nothing off of it that it's not doing the type of things necessarily that I'm used to with the whips that I have. But I think that as you work it, you will get used to it and the whip will get used to you. So whether I'm working on my finer apps, which is what I was doing there for a moment after doing it accidentally because I totally meant to do that. That it just takes a little bit of work, and I think with a little bit of work this will be a fine whip. If you're interested in getting a Florida cow whip, I would recommend one of these. They're a lot of fun. Again, not my normal type of whip, but one that I'm very pleased to have in my collection, and one that I think I'm gonna hold on to and use for a very, very long time. Look for more cow whip content coming up. I've got some ideas for some other videos and challenges and things to do with one of these. Do you have a Florida cow whip? What do you think about it? What have you discovered about it? This is a fascinating whip, and I'm really, really happy to, like I said, to have one in my collection. So, I guess, until next time, practice. Stay safe.